boy. Alright, it's live. Oh my god. Anyways, I don't care if anyone's watching this. I just want to do it kind of live in case anyone was. But, I'll explain this right now. It was super weird. I tried to tell Allison all about this. It was fucking nuts. Okay, so, I had the stream, the night before last. Okay? And it started out with getting, I don't know where I was, but I got a random card, and I was out in the middle of nowhere, like in this field. And I remember looking at this postcard, and it had a picture of a mirror on it, and I just looked at it, and I fell into something, and I actually woke myself up, like I shook myself awake, and I looked around, and I fell back to sleep. The next thing I knew, I was in the fucking elevator with what seemed to be like six other people, and they were all kind of, like they acted like they knew each other or something like that. They seemed to have other conversations, and and then I remember at one point they just looked at me like I was nuts, and I'm just like, I know I'm here. And then I get down to the floor, and this is what it looked like. Okay, I remember we landed at the elevator here, and it was like looking into a downstairs big open colonial library looking thing with shelves along this line. And I remember seeing this beam. It struck someone as they were walking through, and they blew up like Doom style. There was no reason why it was there. It just blew someone up. And I remember there were help desk here with people there, and I had no idea why they needed help or why they were there. It didn't accumulate with me. So I remember before I got there, I remember looking through these, and there was a bunch of old PS2 games, PS3 games, a bunch of old school games. Not old school, but you know what I mean. Oh fuck, it was weird. Okay, so I was going through those, and like people were putting them in their bags, and then I got the idea. I'm like, okay, like this is some underground. This is the impression I got. This is how it felt. I was down there, and we were like collecting all these old school games or something like that. We're just collecting them, and then we had to get back to the elevator and get back up. And I'll get back up to when I remember it was after all this when it told me how to get back through it. Okay, so I was going through all these, and I remember dodging this beam. And I remember on the floor tiles of the beam, it had things that would light up and it would make this noise. And that would, cue you not to go across it. And yet again, I have no idea why the fuck it was there. It fucking blew my mind. Yeah, of course I made it past it. I just, you crawl underneath it. And then more games. It was more games, and then we got like Atari games down here, fucking classic games, N64 games, NES games, whatnot. And then he made it eventually to this room down here, which it was a much shorter corridor. So from that room to this room was this room right here. And I remember I wrote this down. When I came into this room, there were still people filtering in and out. Women, children of all ethnicities. It didn't fucking matter. It was everyone. It was like people were like scrambling like it was the end of the world. And people were like scavenging all these huts. And I remember getting in here, and I remember seeing this huge rack of N64 games. And I remember looking at the rack and so vividly looking at them and seeing like they were nothing I've ever seen before, like medieval looking N64 games. And I keep remember looking behind me, like people were looking at this. These young girls were looking at this older woman crying and trying to figure out how to get back because they didn't know how to get back home. Because like this was like some sort of alternate dimension. This was like not in the real world. And they kept talking to her and being like, how do we get back? How do we get back? And I remember saying some wise-ass shit that I didn't really understand. God damn it. God, this dream is fucked up. I've never told anyone this. But fuck. I remember, and then I remember she told them a bunch of stuff. And she said, that card that we gave us at the beginning, I have no idea how I got it. But you have to have that with you when you go back up through the top back to the elevator. And once you get back up top into it was this open field, you'll see a mirror, and if you reflect yourself you can jump through it if you have the card. And so at this point, when everyone was scavenging, I felt like I was the only one left, and no one wanted these N64 games. There was a bunch of crazy N64 games, and I remember going back into this room, and it was a bunch of broken Ataris and shit like that. It was a bunch of stuff, and I don't remember scavenging this far. I don't remember anything being back there, but I could see the end of the hall and not seeing a door. Same with on this side right here. And I remember going back and thinking, what the fuck? No one else was there. So I went back into this room, you know, same shelf, same blah blah blah, different drawing, my bad. Same things. And I remember going back through, and there was only a few more people here scavenging these. And I remember I came right about here, and me and some other older looking dude was going through games. It was like old PS2 games that no one had ever seen before. And there was like 2 copies of, like, you know, those gun target shooting games. And he looked at me and was like, you gonna grab that one? And I said, oh, yeah, you know, if you want it, you can have it. There's 2 copies. He's like, no, I want the one you have. And I'm like, he's like, what do you want money for it? That's what he said. I remember he's like, what do you want money for? And I'm like, I looked at it, I'm like, no, I mean, if you want it, it's fine. At this time, I already had a duffel bag, like, filled with N64 games. I remember I had it, like, on a dolly at this point, some imaginative dolly. I was carrying it around. So I remember in my dream, it was super fucking heavy. And so, you know, he took it, he went along, and then I remember eventually got around to here where the beam was shooting across. And I remember at that point, it's like this room had become so experienced, there were dudes or kids, like, crouched below it with fucking shit-eating grins on their faces, just smiling, saying who was gonna walk through it. And I remember, like, are you fucking kidding me? Is this that crazy? Like, the whole place seemed vacant. Even these desks seemed vacant. I remember looking at them, wondering, like, oop, oop. And I remember looking at them, and I'm like, what the fuck's going on? They're like people crouched down there, like below the beam, just looking at people to get fried. And I was like, okay. So I remember crouching down in this area right here, dragging the huge military bag of, like, video games I've collected. It was weird. It was fucking weird. It was like vintage games I never even heard of, like N64 games. It didn't make any sense. It made no fucking sense. But I remember making a cross, and I made it to the elevator. And this is the part I didn't sketch out because I was so excited to, like, talk about it, because I'm not an illustrator, as you can see, and I can't really, you know, draw it. But I remember getting back into the elevator, and I'm pretty sure it was the kid that the dude was with when he talked to me. Like, it was like some 17-year-old and, like, some 18-year-old or something like that, and some, like, 15-year-old girl. And one of them came at me here in the elevator when I thought I was going up to get out of there, and I remember I had the card in my pocket, and I remember, like, it's so fucking vivid. It's one of those dreams where you actually get in the spot and you fucking look around and you can see left, right, forward, backwards. And it just blew my fucking mind how vivid the dream was. And I remember getting in the elevator with those 3 preteens and some kid in there and whatever. And I remember I had my bag, and it's like they were poaching me for it. And then one of them had a box knife cutter, and he fucking whipped it out after one of them had already been trying to go through the bag. And I was like, what the fuck are you doing? And he started to grab some, and they're like, oh, look at this, and oh, look at that. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? And I remember already thinking the few they grabbed, I'm like, I already lost a few, what the fuck? And he had the knife, and I remember I fucking grabbed it from his arm. And it's one of those moments where you're dreaming, and you dream in slow motion. You know, you dream in slow motion like this was my life or something. I was trying to defend it. It's weird. It's a weird analogy, I know, but it didn't make sense to me. Keep going. I fucking grabbed it from them after they tried to, like, slice me with it and kill me with it. So I fucking grabbed it. At that point, I guess I really didn't care about the games, but I fucking grabbed it. And you know, like, when you're dreaming and you kind of punch in slow motion, like, you can't get a hit no matter how much you try. I don't know if that's how it feels to you, but, like, let's say you're dreaming and you are trying to defend yourself, and you try to punch the person, and you just seem to miss over and over again, or as if you're punching underwater, like all your blows are slowed down, It felt like that, except I had the box knife to defend myself. And I remember cutting all their necks. Like, it was like a neck cut, but like it wasn't really bleeding. It was just like a small cut. And they kind of were like, oh, but they still kept doing it over and over again. And I remember one of them stopped the button from going up, and I guess the button for going up I remember pushing was like an upwards button in a circular shape, and I pushed it, and then when he pushed it, it turned to a circle. And then the above meter had like a circle bar with had the circle above it, like meaning I wasn't going anywhere. And I remember after they were all somewhat defeated, and they weren't really defeated, but I remember trying to go over and push the button. I kept pushing it, and I couldn't go up. Like I couldn't go anywhere, and I couldn't defeat them. And then that's where the dream kind of ended. It was really weird. It was a weird fucking dream, and I know this is gonna be in my channel forever, but I think it's pretty funny. So yeah, that's that's my dream. That's kind of what happened. It was weird. It blows my mind. It was super vivid. Like I remember going down when I got through the elevator, and everyone, it was like this one big fucking free-for-all of, it was like the whole museum of every single vintage gaming or gaming that could ever be possible. And everyone was just ransacking the place. It was yours to grab. If you grabbed it, it was yours. And I'm sure there was bargaining involved. If I thought about it, I'm sure there was. Like like the moment I had with what I thought was in like some 17-year-old. It was weird. It was super vivid, and yeah, it was super strange. Yeah. Anyways, just wanted to share that. Won't be a Chad video if I didn't do this. I think the craziest part that I'm not really explaining is how vivid it was. Like, God, one of those dreams. I have these dreams all the fucking time. All the fucking time where you're in this universe, and when you want to look left, you look left, and everything is in perfect detail. Right, upward, downward, you're in these fucking fucked up worlds. I got many like these. This was the one that truly stuck out to me. It was really strange. Yeah, it was weird. It was super weird. I'm leaving out a small detail, because it involves a coworker that was there, and she was the older person helping other people try to get out. They were confused on how to get out. But I just remember sticking that postcard that they gave me in my pocket, and I don't know how I got it. I just had this postcard, and I was in this big field, and I saw this mirror, and it reflected me, and all of a sudden, like I said, I spun into it. I jolted myself awake. I fell right back to sleep, and then I was in that elevator going right down. It was so weird. It was so fucking weird. But I've had other dreams like that. Like I've had very vivid attacks on like my hometown, like where I see huge bombers overhead, and it feels super realistic, like a bomb, like a huge plane flies right over your head almost, and almost bombs right in front of you, stuff like that, and you can feel the heat from it and things like, oh god, yeah, I've had a lot of weird shit like that happen to me. I have a lot of weird vivid dreams. They're super vivid all the time. I have no idea why. They're super realistic. They're super realistic, and it kind of freaks me out. But I'm not sure why that is. If anyone else knows, let me know why someone has super realistic, vivid dreams. I have never really looked into it myself, but it's those kind of dreams where you put yourself in that moment, and you can look left, you can look right, you can look anywhere, and everything will be generated, and you can see off in the distance that kind of detail. God, it weirds me out. It makes them fun, but they're usually super tragic. And I remember so many dreams where it was like a countdown to death. Like a nuke's going off, and you have your nearest ones to hug, and you get towards them, and you wait for it to happen. And it's like you're waiting for death, you're waiting for death. And all of a sudden, it happens, and you feel that blast, and you look up, and everything's destroyed, but you're still there, and the person you're holding on to is still there. I just, I really don't know how to explain it. I mean, it's just super vivid. It's crazy, but a lot of them easily do with annihilation of some sort, or some kind of countdown, or being attacked, like on a global scale of some way. It's super fucking weird. Anyways, thought I'd share that. Non-game related. I'm sure this won't get many views, but if someone gets a kick out of it, hey, I guess I did my job. Anyways, I guess Chad 509 out.